let's take the first sort of interpretation that it means by time, from the beginning of time to the end of time. What is the object of the oath? And to get a sort of a better feeling, and forgive me for using sort of something more colloquial, when I used to play basketball years ago, if you foul someone and they're like, you fouled me, like I didn't foul you, and you'd be like, I put that on my mama, like I put that on my mama, right? That's the feeling here, like I put that on time, like that's the feeling of the language. Wal Asr, I put that on time. I swear by time. I swear on time. What? And here the verse stops, and it stops for a reason, to compel the reader or the reciter to say, you put it on what? Like, what's the reason for swearing by time? And so the next verse says, inna. Inna means emphasize. Innal insan. Insan are human beings. There's a difference of opinion about the root of the word insan. Some say, I like to tell my wife this, comes from a root which means to forget a lot. So it's in our nature to forget, right? Innal insan. But insan means all humanity. From the time of Adam to the end of time. Prophets, non-prophets, saints, sinners, whoever. Innal insan, all human beings. Lafi khusr. This lam, la is meant to emphasize again. So there's emphasis, emphasis. It begins with emphasis. In the middle, there's emphasis. Fi. Fi means to be in. But in Arabic, the pixelated meaning is to be submerged. Zarfiyya. Something is encapsulated by something else. It's often used as a metaphor for good or bad to show that someone is like submerged in being good, submerged in being evil. And that's what happens here. The idea of being submerged in something. Innal insana lafi khusr. Indeed, all humanity is indeed submerged, drowning, dripping, we say sometimes in slang, in loss. The word loss here, khusr, although it generally means to be a loser, khasir, specifically it implies bankruptcy. Someone who failed to use the potential and the capital they had in the right way, that they were so irresponsible with it that they failed to cash in on it. And what is the capital in this verse and in this chapter? Time. So the one, I swear by time that indeed, I put it on time that indeed, all people are bankrupt. All people have failed to use the capital that was given to them, here not meaning money as a metaphor, in the right way. What is the capital? Time. Islam places a lot of importance on time and specific parts of time. For example, youth. Now we see people, man, doing explicitly sexual, explicit dances on top of fences, on top of light poles. We see people wasting their youth to get likes, the age of exhibition, whereas your youth is your capital. That's why it's hard to use it. But also at the same time, we see young people across the country in encampments on university campuses using the energy, the power, the bravery of their youth to push in. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that people will not move on the Day of Judgment till they ask about their youth and how they used it. Because youth, if we look at time, youth is where you got that energy. And for those of you who are wondering, actually, many people say that you're a youth in Islam until you reach 60. So congratulations. Like, it's a lot to go there. Some say 40. But the point is, the inability to use blessings, either because I don't want to or because I don't know. Go back to Surah Al Fatiha. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you favored who know and use. Not the way of those who have earned wrath, who know and don't use, or those who've gone astray who don't know and try and think about time. In Islam, we believe that the purpose of time is worship. The Qur'an says, I have not created human beings and jinn except to worship me. Our time is meant to be used for worship. Our time is meant to be used in the broad sense of worship that I talked about earlier, not just ritual worship. Yes, but the broader contours of worship, innal insana lafi khusr. Most people will not use the capital of their time for worship. That's why if you look at this last part of the Qur'an, the 30th part of the Qur'an, it does something really different. Like usually when we think about our lives, we think about our birth and then how we've moved on through the ages. The 30th part of the Qur'an, there's 30 parts of the Qur'an, this chapter's in that 30th part, it sort of antagonizes us and compels us to invert how we think about life, not from our beginning, but from our end, and not our physical end, even our end in the hereafter. So that's why the 30th part of the Qur'an begins with the Day of Judgment. And then it goes through all of the different sort of moments that have led to ultimately Allah being Maliki Yawmiddin. We talked about in Surah Al Fatiha, the sole control of everything that happens in the hereafter. How am I preparing for that? So it walks us, if you will, forwards, backwards. So the 30th part of the Qur'an talks about the Day of Judgment, talks about heaven and hell, talks about punishment, talks about reward in the hereafter, and then slowly goes back to this time when we were alive as either elders or as youth, and then eventually it arrives at what? خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ, to even before we were born. And then the 30th part of the Qur'an ends here by saying what? Wal Asr. As if you want to think about time, don't start from birth, start from death. If you want to think about time and how to manage time and not be lost, think about your ending, not your beginning. Think about the goal, not where you started from. So the verse says, I swear by time, I put it on time that all humanity are submerged in bankruptcy. Actually, in the science of Qur'an, it's not allowed to stop on this verse. Because if you said it, it means everyone's a loser, like everyone's lost. But we are compelled to read the next verse where it has this exception. There's always an exception to the rule, mashallah. And this is some of my teachers used to say, istithna'ur raja, the exception of hope. Because everyone's lost, yet so morbid, could lead to such melancholy. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except for those who believe and do good. We talk about belief in Surah Al Fatiha. We talk about belief in greater detail in our class for new Muslims and non-Muslims on theology, but belief in what Islam commands us to believe in and then translates that into good works. And what's understood from this also is learning. Like I have to learn what to believe in. I have to learn how to act. So, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except those who believe. And those who do good is coupled with those who learn. The word belief in Islam is from a word you can hear, iman, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, which means security and safety. That's why the Prophet Muhammad, his name, before he was a prophet, his nickname in his community was Amin, the one you can trust. Islamically, theologically, Iman, faith, means to affirm what Allah and the Prophet and the Qur'an have commanded me to affirm and believe in my heart and my mind. Tasdeeq al-qalb, affirmation of the heart. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, what is the signs of that belief? Our actions.